All right, here we go. It's very small. Okay, so we are going over our semester 2 review. The question is number 74. The principal will randomly choose 6 students from a large school to represent the school in a photograph. The probability that an athlete is chosen is 30%. What's the probability that 4 athletes are chosen? All right, so let me copy this over. All right, so this is a binomial theorem problem, or you can call them Bernoulli trials as well. Okay, so we want to choose 4 athletes out of 6 students. So that means we have C, 6, choose 4. So that's a combination. We want to choose exactly 4. The probability that I choose an athlete is 30%. So I'm going to put 0.30, and I'm going to have that 4 times. So it's like I would have 4 different branches of my tree that have 30%. And then the rest, so the probability that someone that is not an athlete is chosen would be the rest of that probability, so 0.70. These 2 numbers should always add to be 1. Okay. You would have 2 that are not athletes, so these 2 numbers always add to be the total number of students you were selecting from. Okay. Oops. Okay, and then we figure it out. So remember, we do 6, math, PRB, NCR, 4 on our calculator. We get 15. You can do it all at once if you want. So times 0.30 to the 4 times 0.70 to the 2. When I do that, I get 0.059535. On these binomial theorem ones, I usually use as many decimal places as my calculator gives me, just because some of the probabilities are super small. So sometimes it's like 0.000000 something. All right, another question? Yeah?
32.
Number 32? So let's go look at that one. Oh, all that copied was number 32. I don't know if that will copy or not. All right, so we have oops, that should be ln. So natural log of x plus 4 equals 5. Okay, so I told you guys whenever you see natural log, you should know that that's log-based something, right? What base is it? Yep, it's e. So if you need to rewrite it as log base e, sometimes that will help you recognize what you need to do. So if you write it like this, log base e of x plus 4 equals 5. We now know that since I have it in log form, you can switch to exponential form. So that's always one of the first things I think of when I have logarithms. I'm like, well, what happens when I switch forms? So if I switch forms, it would be e raised to the other side. So e to the 5th equals the part that's left, so x plus 4. We know e to the 5th is a number, so we find it. So do e to the 5th on your calculator. So you get 148.413. That's a point. Equals x plus 4. Subtract the 4 over. So you get 144.413 is equal to x. And that's your answer. You can always go back and check this. Like you could do natural log of your answer plus 4, parentheses. So this is what I put into my calculator, answer plus 4. And when I hit enter, I did get 5. So you can always check these pretty quickly. All right, another one? Yeah, 16?
Wait,
16? 60. Okay. 60. Okay, it says this is an arithmetic sequence. So arithmetic means you're adding what's called a common difference each time. Okay, so you're given two values. You're given that the third term is 20 and the 15th term is 80. So you need to think about how to relate these two terms to each other. So if I started with the third term and I wanted to go, so this is the third, and I wanted to go all the way to the 15th term, you would add one swoop to get to the fourth, you'd add two swoops to get to the fifth, 3 to get to the sixth. How many swoops would you add to get to the 15th term? 12. So that means if you start with the third term, you add 12 of those common differences to get to the 15th term. Okay, so there's our equation. A sub 15 equals A3 plus 12D. All right, so our third term was 20. Our 15th term was 80. Subtract the 20 over, you get 60 equals 12D. So D is equal to 5. All right, and what did it ask for? Did it ask for the first term? I don't know. What, the 20th term? All right, so if it asks for the 20th term, now you say, okay, well, if I start with the third term, I would need 17 common differences. Let's go ahead and start with the 15th term, though, since we know that one as well. So how many common differences do I need to get to the 20th term? 5. So if I start with the 15th and I want to get to the 20th, I would add 5 common differences to get to the 20th term. So I'd have 80 plus 5 times 5 equals A sub 20. So this is 80 plus 25, so 105 should be the 20th term. So that should be your answer. If I asked for the first term, you could go backwards. You could say, oh, I could start with a third term and subtract out 2 common differences. But I would probably just, if I tried to get like the first term, so you don't have to do this, but I would say, oh, A1, I'm going to add 2 common differences to get to A3, and then fill out what you know. So you would have known the common difference, you would have known A3, you could find the first term. Yeah, Izzy?
87.
87. Oops.
Oh wait, no, I just lied. You're not 87, 86. Sorry.
Okay, so it says a total of $12,000 is invested in 2 corporate bonds that pay 7.5% and 9% simple interest. The investor wants an annual interest income of $990 from the investments. What amount should be invested in the 7.5% bond? Okay, this is kind of like the mixture problems. So you can draw your buckets if you want. You don't have a third bucket, though. It's not telling you what percent of the original you would need. So the first thing I'm going to put in is 0.075. So it's 7.5%. The other one's 9%. Oops. So 0.09. And it says you want a total interest. So this is your percent interest that's going inside here. Percent interest. You want a total amount of interest of $990. So that's basically already been multiplied by a percentage, right? It's some percentage of the original, of the $12,000. All right, so we have 2 amounts. You could call them X and Y and use 2 variables if you want, but what we did in class is we called one of them X, and we said we wanted it to add up to be 12,000. So if it was 2,000, the other one's going to be 10,000. If it's 3,000, it's 9,000. So what we do is we do 12,000 minus X to get the other amount. So we have 0.075x plus 0.09 times 12,000 minus x equals that total amount of interest. So what we're saying is that if I invest like 10,000, if x was 10,000, I would multiply by 0.075 to get the amount of interest I'm making, right? 7.5% of the 10,000 would be the amount of interest you make. All right, and then this times this would be the amount of interest you make from that one. The total amounts of interest add up to be $990. Okay, so we solve it out. So I get 0.075x plus, so I need to do 0.09 times 12,000. so 1080, so 1080, minus 0.09x equals 990. Subtract your 1080. So you get negative 90. You do 0.075 minus 0.09. You get negative 0.015x. Do negative 90 divided by that answer, and you get x is equal to 6,000. Okay. Notice in your question it said how much should be invested in the 7.5% bond. A lot of times I'll say how much should be invested in each. So you'd have to write out 6,000 in the 7.5%, 6,000 in the 9%. All right, so in this case we just have to say $6,000. So that's in the 7.5%. They don't always end up being equal, right? You could have 3,000 and 9,000 or something like that. I personally would invest more in the 9%. I'd be getting more interest, but sometimes there's more risk with those ones. Yeah. Do what, 91? Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of times with bonds, they'll say like, oh, with this one you have to have it in for a certain number of years or things like that. So that's why you invest in different amounts. Okay, so it says know how to use the law of sines and the law of cosines. So we'll see which one this one is. Okay, so it always helps to draw these out. So it says solve the triangle if A is equal to 85 degrees. So I'm going to draw almost a 90-degree angle, but not quite. And it says little a, so that's the side across from A, is 15 centimeters. And little b, so put angle B on either one, is 25 centimeters. That means C is probably going to be the other one. Okay, when it says solve the triangle, that means you need to find all the missing angle measures, all the missing side lengths. So we need to find little c, angle B, angle C. Okay, we always go through our different choices. So the first thing we look for is SOHCAHTOA. Can I use SOHCAHTOA? I can't use SOHCAHTOA. Why can I not use SOHCAHTOA? It's not a right angle, right? So we don't have any right angles, so that's out. The next thing we check is law of sines. So law of sines means that I need to have like an angle and the side across from it. Well, that's good. So I have sine of A over little a, right? And I have little b, so that's going to allow me to find big B, angle B. Okay, so sine of 85 degrees over 15 equals sine of, we don't know angle B, but we do know little b is 25. So this is going to allow us to solve for big B. All right, always check the mode of your calculator. So make sure that it's in degree mode. If someone borrows your calculator from calculus or something, they'll put it in radians. Okay, so we're going to cross multiply. Or you could just say sine of 85 over 15. So find that answer. I got that to be 0.0664, something like that. And then take that 25 and multiply it over. So if you're more comfortable with cross multiplication, you can do that. It doesn't matter. So when I do that, I get 1.6603 is equal to sine of B. So this is a good question to ask. So what happens on this one? Yeah, if you do inverse sine of your answer, it says error domain. So there's no solution to this one. Now, if you think about it logically, we know that with triangles, the largest side is across from the largest angle, correct? Makes sense? Okay, already this side is larger than the other side, the 15. So that's saying that angle B has to be larger than angle A. But angle A was pretty big. It was 85. Okay, so if we have something larger, like 90, that means the other one can only be like 5 degrees. So there is something kind of wacky with this triangle. So if you think about it, sometimes you can kind of think about that. can figure it out. Yeah.
You don't, for the next one, you don't have to do the whole thing, but would that be no solution too because you don't have any angle measurements?
Nope, the next one you can do Law of Cosines. So is it 92? All right, and you might want to write yourself a note next to 92 that when we have Law of Cosines, oops, I forgot to take attendance. I bet they're calling me. Sarah, can you answer that?
She closed.
Okay, so the weird thing, remember how Law of Sines has the really weird one where you could have more than one answer? So you could have no solution, one answer, or two solutions. Law of Cosines kind of has a weird case, but it's not super weird. Basically, if you have three sides, so we have side, 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 then we want to put the largest side first. So what I mean by that is that's going to be, like the 19 is going to be the part that's on the left side of the equation. So 19 squared equals, so it's going to be 8 squared plus 14 squared minus 2 times 8 times 14, and then cosine of whatever this was. So since it was 19 and it was b, it's going to be cosine of angle b. All right, and then we solve it out. The biggest thing that people have trouble with when they're solving this is they will combine all of these numbers and then just have like cosine of b on the end. You can't do that. So you have to do things one thing at a time. So you'd have 8 squared and then 14 squared. So you'd have 64 plus 196 minus 2 times 8 times 14. So minus 224 cosine of b. Think of the cosine of b as like an x. If I had 64 plus 196 minus 224x, could you combine those numbers? No, the only things you can combine are the 64 and the 196, right? Okay. But since it had an x, you wouldn't be able to combine that with anything else. So we have 64 plus 196 is 260 minus 224 cosine of b equals 19 squared, which is 361. We can subtract the 260 over, though. So minus 260 would be 101 equals negative 224 cosine of b. Now what? Divide by negative 224. So you get negative 0.45089 equals cosine of b. I keep that answer in my calculator, and now I do inverse cosine to solve for b. So inverse cosine of that answer. So you get b is equal to 116.8 degrees. If you're good geometry students, you'll remember you need to write measure of angle b. But like I said, if you guys just write capital B, I'll know that's your angle. Little b is your side. Okay, so we have angle b. So we have one of the angles. We need to find the other two angles. We have all the sides, right? So once we do that, if I have angle b, that means I'm going to use law of sines now. I'm going to say sine of angle b divided by little b, so 19, equals sine of, you can do a or c, it doesn't matter. So I'll do angle a over little a, 8. And now I use that to solve for angle a. So law of sines. You don't want to use law of cosines again because, I mean, it's a lot more time consuming than law of sines, right? So we do sine of that answer divided by 19. And then, so right now I have 0.0469. Now I'm going to multiply my 8 over. So times 8. So you get sine of a is equal to 0.3758. Do inverse sine of your answer. You guys with me? You get a is equal to 22.075, so we'll say 22.1 degrees. So again, that's measure of angle A. All right, so that means measure of angle C is going to be 180 minus those two values. So you get measure of angle C is equal to 41.1 degrees. Okay, so you've now solved the triangle. Okay, other questions?
Is there 93?
93? I'm going to take both 93 and 94 because they go together. Okay, so it says the road from Westville to Centerville is 10 miles long. And from Centerville to Eastville is 15 miles long. The two roads meet at an angle of 126 degrees. Okay, so don't think like west, center, east, like they're all in one line. Does that make sense? There is an angle between them. So let's say Centerville is right here, Westville, Eastville. Okay, so the road from Westville to Centerville is 10 miles long. And Centerville to Eastville is 15. And it says the two roads meet at an angle of 126 degrees. So I made it a nice obtuse angle. The telephone company wants to place a cable that connects Westville and Eastville directly. So this is going to be our cable. Oops. How long will that cable be? Okay, can I use SOHCAHTOA? Nope, no 90-degree angle. Can I use Law of Sines? No, because I have like, I have my angle C, but I don't have side C. Okay, and then I don't have any other angles. So we can't use Law of Sines. So I'm going to use Law of Cosines. So my angle that I'm going to use is C. So that means for Law of Cosines, I want to start with little c. So it's going to be c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine of angle C. Remember, whatever comes first is the angle that you're using at the end. Okay. You might want to, you guys will have a flashcard for your final, so you'll put this on your note card. All right, so C is my cable, so c squared equals, in this case I don't have A and B, I have like W and E. It's just, this is going to be my side C, so my other two sides. So just do 10 squared plus 15 squared minus 2 times 10 times 15. And then cosine of the angle is 126. So cosine of 126. Your calculator can handle all of that put in all at once. The difference between this one and the last one is we didn't have like cosine of x, right? We had cosine of a number. So you can put all of this in all at once if you want to. If you're worried about it, then just do one thing at a time. Okay, when I put it in all at once, I got c squared is equal to 501.3356. Do you guys get that? All right, I'm solving for c, so I need to take the square root of my answer. So c equals 22.391. So about, we'll say 22.4 miles. It should kind of make sense in your problem. First of all, if I had gotten 501 as my answer, I would think, oh wait, it was 10 miles and 15 miles. How am I getting 501? Remember, you have to take the square root, so don't forget that part. But then also, notice how the 126 has to be your largest angle in the triangle. So it has to be larger than 10 and 15. It makes sense from your drawing. And then 94, it says, in the above problem, what angle will the cable make with the road from Eastville to Centerville? Okay, so it's saying the cable and the road from Eastville to Centerville. So we're trying to find angle E. So we want to find the measure of angle E. Okay, and you can do that with Law of Sines now because you already have it set up. So you can do sine of 126 degrees over 22.4, or you can keep that answer in your calculator that we already have, equals sine of E over 10. So I'm going to do sine of 126 divided by answer, because I already have the 22.390524, you know, to keep it as precise as possible. Then multiply by 10. So you get sine of e equals 0.3613. Do inverse sine. You should get e equals 21.2. So about 21.2 degrees. Okay, Santiago, did you have a question?
Did I plug anything wrong?
Yeah, so it's, so you put minus, that should be a plus there. Okay, maybe time for one more? Yeah, Allie? Okay. Yeah. What number? Number 2? Okay. Okay, so we have 4x squared minus 13x equals 12. So first we know that when we're factoring, we want everything set equal to 0 if we're trying to solve an equation, so if there's an equal sign. So I'm going to subtract my 12 over. Okay, the next thing you notice is that you don't have a 1x squared. When you had a 1x squared out front, that's when you can use the trick that you guys all want to use, the thing where you say, oh, they multiply to be negative 12, but add to be the middle number, negative 13. Okay, you can't use that trick unless you have a 1x squared out front. Okay, so I can't do that. I do want to find things that multiply to be negative 12 and things that multiply to be 4. So factors of 4 would be 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. Factors of 12 are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. The way I always do my factoring problems is I pick the ones that are closest together, like 3 and 4 are closest together, and 2 and 2 are closest together. And I try those ones first. Okay, so when I factor, so I'm going to set up my parentheses. I'm going to say, okay, I want 2x and I want 2x. And then I want my numbers to be 3 and 4. And then right away, I know that there's a problem. Okay, my problem is that in my original problem, 4x squared minus 13x minus 12, there was no common factor. There's nothing that you could have pulled out. Okay, but here, they have a GCF of 4. Or 2, I mean. A greatest common factor of 2, something that they could have pulled out. If you can't pull that out from the original, you shouldn't be able to pull it out from the factored form. So that's out. So basically, I can't have 2x and 2x. Do you guys see why you can't have 2x and 2x? Because you're always going to have that problem because one of your factors has to be even for the 12s. So let's do 4x and 1x for the beginning ones. All right, now let's try the 3 and 4 again, but now I can be a little bit smarter about where I put it. I'm not going to put a 4 here because that's bringing up that GCF thing again. I would have had a GCF of 4. But it's okay for me to put the 3 there, and it's okay for me to put the 4 there. Right? No GCFs. I know my signs have to be opposite because they need to multiply to be a negative 12. So I need a plus and a minus. This is where I always check my outer and inner terms. Right now I have 3x and I have 16x. Is there any way to combine 3x and 16x with opposite signs to get negative 13x? Like, how can I add those with opposite signs? Negative 16 and positive 3, right? So I need plus and I need minus. So that means that I've factored into 4x plus 3 times 1x minus 4. Now you have two things multiplied equaling 0, so you need 4x plus 3 could be 0, or x minus 4 could equal 0, and then you solve both. So subtract the 3 over, divide by 4, so you get negative 3/4, and 4. And then these are nice because you can always go back to your original and check to see if it's true. So if your answers don't work in the original, then you've factored wrong. All right, so that's probably the last one.
Can there be no solutions on these?
Nope, there should be solutions. I won't put a prime one on there for you.